Sometimes life doesn't break us all at once. Sometimes it just gets quiet. The dream get quieter, the questions get louder, and somewhere along the way we start wondering if maybe this is just how things are supposed to be. Maybe you felt that space between accepting your life and knowing there's still something inside of you asking for more. Because life isn't always sunshine and rainbows. Sometimes it's just another morning, another decision, another chance to choose what comes next. And maybe that's the challenge. Not becoming someone completely different, just deciding, do I settle here or do I try one more time? Because sometimes one more time is where everything begins. And with that, we are back with another session of Thoughts of the Challenge. And I am your host, your boy Miro. And y'all know how this goes. We bring everyday challenges, we bring everyday situations and everyday life, and we bring it all together in this episode. And we try to teach, we try to learn, and we try to give it back to one another. Because I promise you, your story is going to save somebody's life today. And today is no different. There's a question that follows every living person. It doesn't care how old you are. It doesn't care how much money you have. It doesn't care where you come from, what you've lost, who left, who stayed, or how many times you failed. It waits for you in the morning. It sits beside you when the room gets quiet. It follows you into the shower. It rides with you in the car. It shows up when you're lying in bed at 2 a.m. staring at the ceiling, wondering what the hell did life go? And the question is simple. What are you going to do now? Not yesterday, not someday, not when everything finally makes sense. Now, because life has a strange way of putting us at the same intersection over and over and over again. One road says this is enough. The other says keep going. And sometimes the hardest thing isn't choosing between good and bad. It's choosing between the comfortable and possible. Because settling doesn't always look like giving up. Sometimes settling looks like getting a paycheck, paying your bills, going to work, coming home, watching something, scrolling for hours, going to sleep, and doing it all over again. The routine. Nothing is technically wrong. And somehow something still feels like it's missing. That's the dangerous kind of surrender. The kind nobody notices, not even you. You don't wake up one morning and announce, I've decided to abandon myself. No, it happens quietly. One dream postponed, one opportunity ignored, one uncomfortable conversation avoided. One more year goes by, and eventually the life you once imagined becomes something you only talk about in the past tense. I used to want to. I was going to, maybe someday, and I wonder how many people listening right now are living inside a sentence that begins with, I used to. How many people are carrying an old version of themselves around like an unfinished song? How many people have become experts at surviving but forgot how to live? Whew. Maybe that's the challenge we don't talk about enough. Not failure, not success, continuation, the ability to keep becoming after life is giving you every reason to stop. Because anybody can keep moving when life is working. Anybody can believe when the doors are opening. Anybody can have faith when the answers arrive quickly. But what happens when you knock and nothing happens? What happens when you knock again and nothing happens? And again, and again. And now you're standing there with bruised knuckles, exhausted, questioning whether there was ever a door there in the first place. That's where the real battle begins. Not outside you, inside you. I'm a big fan of the Rocky Balboa series. These movies have given me life quotes, life lessons, and greater understanding than anyone or any entertainment could have ever given me. And I use quotes from those movies on a regular basis. Hell, Mickey's Talk to Rocky in the beginning movies were golden, and continuing into the battle. Or even in the more later series of Rocky Balboa, talking to his son about becoming better. One of my favorites is life is not all sunshine and rainbows. Life will keep hitting you and keep you down if you let it. And that's the part we don't put on motivational posters. Life will hit you. It will humble you. It will disappoint you. It will take people from you. It will change plans when you thought were permanent. Sometimes you will do everything you were supposed to do, and still lose. Sometimes you'll be good to people who aren't good to you. Sometimes you'll work hard and someone less prepared will get the opportunity. Sometimes you'll give everything you have and still come up short. Sometimes you'll look at your own life and think, how am I still here? And maybe the better question isn't, why am I still here? Maybe it's what is still alive inside of me? Because if you're still here, alive, living, the story isn't finished. Read that again in your own life. If you're still here, alive and living, your story isn't finished. You don't need to have the whole road figured out. You don't need to have the whole road figured out. You don't need to know where the next 5 years are going. You don't need to know what tomorrow looks like. Sometimes faith is simply saying, I don't know what's next, but I'm not done. That's it. That's enough for today. And maybe you're listening to this after falling for the 100th time, the 1,000th time. Maybe you're embarrassed. You're tired of disappointing yourself. You've made promises to yourself so many times that you don't trust your own promises anymore. This time, I'm going to change. Then you did it. This time, I'm going to stop. Then you didn't. This time, this time, life happens, but listen carefully. Your history is evidence of what happened. It is not prophecy of what happens next. You are not required to repeat yourself simply because you've repeated yourself before. You can interrupt the pattern. You can stop in the middle of the sentence. You can become the better version. You can become the person who says, this is where it changes. Not because you're suddenly stronger, not because you're suddenly fearless, but because you're tired of abandoning yourself. And sometimes that's where strength begins. Not with confidence, with exhaustion, with that moment where you finally say, I cannot keep living against myself. There's another kind of person I want to talk to. The person nobody asks about, the strong one, the dependable one, the person everyone calls when something goes wrong, the person who says, I'm good, because they don't know how to say, I'm not. The person who makes everyone laugh while quietly fighting a war nobody knows exists. The person who has learned how to carry everybody else's pain while pretending their own doesn't weigh anything. And if that's you, you don't have to be strong every second. You are allowed to put the armor down. You are allowed to say, I need help. You are allowed to admit that you are scared. You are allowed to cry. You are allowed to not know. You are allowed to rest without feeling guilty, because resting isn't quitting. And vulnerability isn't weakness. Sometimes the strongest thing a person can do is finally tell the truth. I'm hurting. I'm lost. I'm tired. I don't know how to get back. And maybe that's where the way back begins. Not with pretending you're okay, with admitting you are not. There are people listening right now who don't need another person telling them to hustle. They don't need someone screaming, wake up at 5, work harder, grind. Maybe what they need is someone to remind them you are still worth fighting for. Not because you're productive, not because you're successful, not because you figured everything out, because you're living, because you're alive, because there is still something inside you that wants to see tomorrow, because somewhere beneath all the disappointment, there's still a spark. And your job isn't to create the sun. Your job is to protect the spark. That's all. Some days you won't feel inspired. Protect the spark. Some days you'll fail. Protect the spark. Some days you'll question everything. Protect the spark. Some days you'll fall back into the same behavior you swore you left behind. Protect that spark. Because becoming isn't a straight line. It's a conversation between who you have been and who you're learning to become. And this is where you need to redefine failure. What if falling down isn't the opposite of moving forward? What if sometimes getting back up is the movement? Think about it. The person who falls and gets back up has learned something the person who never fell never had to learn. They know what the ground feels like. They know what disappointment tastes like. They know what rejection sounds like. They know what it means to look at something they built and watch it collapse. And yet they stand, not untouched, not unchanged, but standing. There's something sacred about that, because eventually you realize, I don't need a life where I never fall. I need a life where falling doesn't get the final word. Let's talk about settling, because settling isn't always saying, I don't want anything. Sometimes settling is saying, this is probably all I'm capable of. That's different. That's not peace. That's surrender wearing the clothes of peace. Real peace doesn't require you to shrink. Real peace doesn't demand you to kill every dream so you can stop being disappointed. Real peace says I can accept where I am without believing this is where I have to stay. You can love your life and still want more from it. You can be grateful and still be hungry. You can appreciate today without abandoning tomorrow. There is no contradiction in becoming. And the question, and the real question, not will I succeed because you don't, and maybe that's the real question. Not will I succeed because you don't control every outcome. Not will everyone believe in me? They won't. Not will life finally get easier? Sometimes it won't. The question is much more uncomfortable. Who am I willing to be regardless? Who are you when nobody is watching? Who are you when the applause disappears? Who are you when the plan fails? Who are you when the person you thought would stay leaves? Who are you when you're standing at the bottom of the mountain again? Because anybody can be themselves at the top, but who are you at the bottom? That's where character introduces itself. That's where faith gets tested. That's where identity gets rebuilt. To be or not to be? That is the question. We usually hear that as a question about existence. And maybe it's something much deeper. Maybe every day we answer it without realizing it. To be or not to be. To show up or disappear. To speak or remain silent. To forgive or carry the weight. To try or settle. To become or remain trapped inside an identity created by our past. Every morning, life hands you another blank page. And maybe you don't get to choose what happened yesterday, but you get a vote. And what happens next? That vote is called choice. And choice is powerful because it doesn't ask permission from your circumstances. You can choose differently in a bad year. You can choose differently while broke. You can choose differently while heartbroken. You can choose differently while afraid. You can choose differently after failure. You can choose differently after 30, after 40, after 60. There is no expiration date on becoming. So the person listening who feels like they're too far gone, come back. Not all at once. Just come back today. Take one step. Make one call. Have an honest conversation. Forgive one person. Write one page. Take one walk. Apply one opportunity. Turn off the phone. Get some sleep. Drink some water. Pray. Breathe. Start again. It doesn't have to look impressive. It just has to be real because 1,000-mile life can be rebuilt through ordinary decisions, one after another. And to the person who has been fighting quietly, I see the question you're afraid to ask. What if it never gets better? I can't promise you that everything will. Nobody honestly can. But I can tell you something else. You will not always be the person standing here today. You will learn, you will change, you will lose things, you will gain things. You will become someone your current self cannot fully imagine. And maybe the future isn't waiting for you to become perfect. Maybe it's simply waiting for you to keep walking toward it. There will be a day when your faith feels like a candle in a hurricane. Protect it. There will be nights when your mind becomes louder than your hope. Breathe. There will be moments when everyone around you seems to be moving forward while you're standing still. Don't measure your journey with someone else's ruler. There will be seasons where your only accomplishment is surviving. Don't underestimate that. Sometimes survival is the bridge between who you were and who you become. And if you've fallen 100 times, then let today be the 101st time you stand. Not because standing guarantees victory. Stand because you refuse to let the fall define the person who gets up. You don't need to prove anything to the world. You don't need to become somebody else's idea of greatness. You just need to stop betraying the person inside you who still believes there to be more. That voice may be quiet. Listen anyway. The dream may be buried. Dig. That heart may be hard. Let something reach it. That soul may be tired. Give it somewhere safe to rest. Because sometimes the light doesn't arrive from somewhere else. You become the light by refusing to go completely dark. So here's the challenge. Not for tomorrow. For today, ask yourself, what am I selling for that I know I don't want? And then ask, why? Don't judge the answer, just listen. Maybe you're afraid. Maybe you're tired. Maybe you don't believe you're capable. Maybe you're comfortable. Maybe you've been hurt before. Maybe somebody convinced you that your dream was ridiculous. Maybe you spent so long surviving that you forgot you were allowed to want something. Whatever the answer is, meet it with honesty. Then ask one more question. What is one thing I could do today that person I'm becoming would thank me for? Not 10 things. One, do that. Tomorrow, one more. That's how life changes. Not always through explosions. Sometimes through tiny decisions nobody sees. And when you fall again, because you probably will, don't turn that fall into an identity. Say, I fell, not I am a failure. There's a difference. Say, I made a mistake, not I am a mistake. Say I'm struggling, not I'm broke. Language matters. The story you tell yourself becomes the room you live inside. So build a room with a door. Build a room you can leave. Build a story where redemption is possible because it is. Maybe that's what this podcast is really about. Not having all the answers, not pretending life is easy, not pretending pain doesn't exist, but sitting together in the middle of the uncertainty and asking better questions. Questions like, what if I'm not finished? What if this isn't the end? What if the person I thought I was had to break so I could discover someone new? What if the failure wasn't punishment? What if it was information? What if the darkness isn't asking me to surrender? What if it's asking me to learn how to carry the light? So wherever you are right now, in the car, in your bedroom, at work, walking alone, sitting beside someone you love, or sitting alone because you don't know who you can talk to, I want you to hear this. You are not required to have your entire life figured out tonight. You are not required to know how the story ends. You are not required to feel brave. You don't even have to believe everything will work out. For now, just believe you can take the next step. You can't see the whole staircase? Take the step you can see. If you can't run, walk. You can't walk, crawl. You can't crawl, rest. But don't confuse resting with the end, because life is going to test you. It will test your patience, your character, your relationship, your faith, your identity, your ability to keep choosing yourself after disappointments. And maybe the goal was never to become someone who doesn't break. Maybe the goal was to become someone who knows how to rebuild again and again and again and again and again until one day you look back and realize the person who thought they couldn't make it made it further than they ever imagined. Not because life became sunshine and rainbows, but because they learned how to walk through the rain. So to the voiceless, speak. To the exhausted, rest. To the lost, take one step. To the broken, rebuild slowly. To the person who is fallen, get up when you're ready. To the person who has stopped believing, borrow a little faith from tomorrow. And to the person standing at the intersection right now, with one road leading towards comfort and another leading towards uncertainty, remember this. You don't have to know where the road ends. You only have to decide whether you're willing to walk. Because every day, whether we realize it or not, we answer the same ancient question: to be or not to be. Not simply to exist, but to participate, grow, love, risk, fail, begin again, become, and maybe, just maybe, the greatest rebellion against a life that tried to break you isn't becoming hard. It's becoming whole. So if nobody told you today, here it is. You can begin again, even here, especially here, after the 100th fall, after the 1000th fall, after the missed opportunity, after the heartbreak, after the years you wish you could get back, after the version of yourself you don't recognize anymore. You can still choose. As long as you can choose, there's still a way forward. Maybe not the way you imagined, maybe not the way you planned, maybe not even the way you wanted, but a way. And sometimes a way is all the light will need. So take the next step, then another. And when you eventually look back, don't ask how you survived the darkness. Ask yourself something better. How did I become the light? That is the challenge. That is the choice. And that is the question. What would you choose? And with that, I bring you thoughts of the challenge. And I am your host, your boy Miro. From my screen to yours, all the love and appreciation from deep down into my spirit to you. I thank you all for supporting. I thank you all for your comments, your likes, your feedback. I thank you for choosing today. For today, we all get to choose us. I will see you on the next go around, my friends.